when the pandemic hit, uh, our engineering team, we had to lay off a bunch of people on our engineering team. And the result is I actually ended up writing a bunch of code
Hmm.
myself. And so it was an interesting experience and very formative in kind of my ops career, because from that, I took away a lot of different software principles that I think apply to operations as well. And so, like, speaking to maintaining and building these systems, some of the takeaways from that engineering experience was these systems should, like the concept of keep it simple. Like, these systems should be so easy and human readable and understandable for you to jump in and understand what happens. So for example, um, like, let's say you're operating with some Excel formulas, and you're probably familiar with those really deep nested if statements. Like, if this happens, then this, but if this happens, then this, blah, 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 blah. That's a good example of, like, yeah, maybe it's an elegant solution, but it's not simple. Like, it's very hard to open up that formula and actually understand what's happening there. And so a concept there is to, like, abstract all of those inner if statements into, like, their own columns or own data, and it's more information, but it's more human readable to understand all the inputs, outputs, and things that are happening there. I think, like related to that, like, another software principle we pulled away is like the single responsibility principle,
Okay.
where a piece of your system should do one thing and one thing only. It shouldn't necessarily have all of these other dependencies or try to do too much. Um, so I'll try to use an example for Leagueside. So we use uh, Airtable for managing events,
Okay.
and events have a lot of moving parts to it. There's collecting the event information from the youth sports league. There's sending it to the sponsor for their approval. And then there's making sure the league executes all of the promotions leading up to that actual event. And when we initially built this, we just put it all in one big Airtable base. We were like, all right, this is all of our events. This is the process. This is kind of how we'll do it. But the result of that is, like, that system was responsible for three different things. So if you change, like, the sponsor workflow or the sponsor approval workflow, it would break the whole system. Or if you changed how events are collected, it would break the whole system. So instead, we kind of decoupled each of those steps, put them in their
Hmm.
own place, define, like, the interface. What are the inputs and outputs of each system? Keep those consistent, and then make it super simple and step by step, like, within that specific certain function. And so the result is, like, we have a system that's more extendable, more reusable, and easier to maintain, and anyone can more easily step in and understand what's going on. I give you, like, a super long-winded answer to,
No,
to your
no, that
seemingly
it's
simple
super
question.
interesting. No. No, this is great. And so, like, w- I would also have to imagine that when you do break those things down into those unique steps, then all of a sudden it's not just, bringing those particular steps together for that particular event process, but now step 2 might be reusable inside of a season long sponsorship process as opposed to a single event one, right? And so now all of a sudden it almost becomes like this library of like operation steps that they can pick and choose from. Am I going too far with that?
No, that's 100% right. And that's also a software principle. You're talking about dry, don't repeat yourself, just reuse code wherever you can. Like, that's 100% on the money.
That's super interesting. And so you were talking really right at the beginning of our conversation about this idea of, like, the blueprint's going to help you to prioritize. I think you said what to ship today and what to ship tomorrow. And so I would have to imagine that this experience, as going to actually having to be the person who is helping to write the code for your company, is probably influencing the way that you now prioritize in ops. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I think, with software, it's even more hyperbolized that you don't have enough time, you don't have enough resources, there's too much stuff to build, we have to
Yeah.
prioritize. Um, and we've kind of taken that to ops too. Like, ops time is, like, really, you can automate everything, but automations also come with a cost, right? You have to
Mm.
maintain the system that you've automated. and you have to make improvements, you have to change all of those pieces. And so that ruthless prioritization and saying, like, is this good enough? Like, to your point before, like, what's the metric? Are we getting a pass fail? Is it good enough? If not, like, we can come back and revisit it. But uh, just prioritizing, like, shipping this, solved it good enough, it's maintainable enough, it's simple enough. Like, those are the things that are really important in case we want to change it later.